that process of rebuild has already started. One site is back on here already, believe it or not, with 8 to be completed within the next 2 weeks. So the building is happening. Restoration is taking place in the background, and 2 weeks to 75%.
The question that I would want to ask now, you would notice that my head was down and I was in the phone. Persons are watching us on stream, and so the questions, really, all of this is coming in fast and furious. They are unable to, and I shouldn't say unable, but they want to hear in layman's term. For the West, especially St. James, when will they be able to use a phone? I mean, they hear all that you have been saying. They just want it in simple layman term. 1 week, 2 weeks.
Within 2 weeks.
Within 2 weeks. So members of the St. James community, we have digital word that within 2 weeks' time, within 2 weeks, Mr. Morad is here, and so he's, by silence, he's confirming that within 2 weeks.
To add that if we continue to see, forgive my tone, the foolishness of intentional destruction, theft, vandalism, I'm sorry, but that would be 2 weeks is impossible. You're making the job harder than it needs to be. I'm sorry for my tone. But that will stop us.
No, Mr. Morad, we share your pain. We do understand the situation that there are unscrupulous persons who have been using the disaster to, and I would say to their benefit somewhat. And we are appealing, just as you have, to these persons to desist from doing so, because what they're actually doing really is to set back business a great deal and to inconvenience your neighbor or your brother. And so we at this time, as the committee in session, appealing to those who have ulterior motive, please, to desist from that. But notwithstanding, we are looking forward to that 2 weeks, and we hope, we pray that what you are feeling, that it will be something of the past somewhat. Mr. Reynolds, you had something to add? No? Okay. So we go to the next person.
I heard what Mr. Morad said. I heard what Mr. Reynolds said. And Mr. Reynolds said within 2 weeks, which there may be a little gray area. But the good news, Mr. Chairman, is that Mr. Morad said that most are not all, correct me if I'm wrong, of the parts are the things that are needed to build out these places are in Jamaica. So that's a very good place. That was an excellent place to start. So possibly the 2 weeks or the end of the year to 100%, the end of December 2025, we should be able to get back to pre-Hurricane Melissa standards at Digicel. All right.
I want to make this point. We're on a positive note, and what we've heard today is good. My concern, though, is as a rural member of parliament, when you indicate and you use numbers like 75% will have access, sometimes it deals with the major town centers, and then you have hundreds of districts that fall in that 1%, 2% of your customer base. And the National Water Commission behind you would understand that the 75%, I respect it, I applaud it, and I must say, last night at 6:30, I arrived in Holland Bamboo and Lacovia, and I did get service there. And I must say, the individuals I was meeting with, when they saw it come up, they were surprised. That happened last night at 6:30, deep into the West, and I was surprised. But I must say that when you use those numbers, some of us will still not, I don't want to use the word befooled. I don't believe you've come here to, and I want to stay very positive. But we understand what those numbers mean. If you put on the 10 major towns of Westmoreland, you may be up at 90%. And you still have hundreds of individuals who rely on your infrastructure to make a livelihood, for health, for education. This committee this morning has not spoken about so many things that are affected and that rely on you to put our primary schools, deep rural, into back in position. We must have your service. And so when you say 75%, Mr. Reynolds, I'm not being unkind. I'm not throwing cold water on it. I'm not saying you're not working hard, Mr. Burrows, as you pull your fiber through at night on the road. I do see you, and we acknowledge you. But the 75%, Mr. Chairman, for us deep rural, it has to be broken down. And the National Water Commission understands that.
If I can, and thanks for that. And we have a lot of staff members whose family was in Lacovia. My CFO, Stacey, she rang me in the gridlock of traffic the other night, so she was very happy that they got service for her family in Lacovia. But I wanted to sort of, yeah, sorry, I've lost it. Every day is exactly the same. There's a film called Groundhog Day. I think we're just fortunate, but I think it's important to distinguish what Digicel Jamaica also is. We're the largest foundation in Jamaica, which me and Joy have the privilege and honour of being on. We're 20 years as a foundation. We've been on the ground. I was in middle quarters up in visiting some of the people worst hit, so whilst we might not be personally directly impacted, but every single customer, I promise you, is important. I want to reconnect everybody. Doesn't matter where you live, whether you feel that you're in a smaller community. The most important thing for us, that's the thing that keeps us awake every minute of the night, is to make sure we reconnect everybody in Jamaica. That's, I promise you, and anybody who's listening, that's all we think about every single day, because we've been there. We know how important it is to hear people to make a phone call, go on the TikTok and Instagram, because clearly that's what everybody in Jamaica wants to do these days. But people make a living out of these things. Wherever, I think most people in the room, maybe apart from Brandon, are of a particular age where we wouldn't have been able to make money from TikTok, etc. as well. So it's important that we reconnect everybody. Not just the communication piece, because that's important as well. Maybe the family is overseas, but being able to get commerce working, farming communities, Black River is unrecognisable. But even when we went to Falmouth, the amount of devastation seen there is something else. So we're also committed as a foundation. We are helping people where we can do and going around all of the communities, and we won't stop, because that's an important side of Digicel, which isn't something you read in the newspaper. We don't plaster that everywhere, because that's important to us, that we get out there and visit our customers. The amount of work of smart classrooms that we've done, we've got 21 fully enabled smart classrooms. Education is really important. Special needs also, from a foundation perspective. We're proud of what we do in the foundation, and we don't take that job lightly. Yes, like Joe, we wear one hat. We've got a business to run, but we have an absolute duty and care and obligation from what we do for our people as well, and we won't stop until we get everybody reconnected. So I wanted to just make sure I touched on the foundation work, because I know that's sort of the end of the presentation. My last slide is there's always hope, because I think that's what came apparent to me visiting the people and the spirit of the Jamaican people and the kids that we saw. There is absolutely always hope, and we won't be defeated by this. So that's probably the end of the presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Mr. Burrows?
Oh, sure. Let me just wrap one thing here.
my CEO just spoke about the foundation and its reach. And I've had the privilege of being one of those founding employees of Digital. And I know our deep rural reach and the joy that we got from our engagement in deep rural and what might have set us apart from the competitor, the incumbent then. What I will say to you, Member Roberts, is that the commitment that you are seeing here is not simply a commercial commitment. It is a commitment from our founding principles about connectivity. I have responsibility for a cadre of engineers and support services right throughout. Digital is connected to and peopled by individuals who come from those communities, who would not leave us, who would not cause us.
You're through, Mr. Burris?
I yield to Member Robertson because I wanted to make a point that there is a commitment from us to go to the nook and crannies in those communities. I have driven those communities right after I started, before roads were cleared. We started to make contact with people who are very important to us, people who have reached out to us over many years, people who will still have their numbers after many years, trying to reach them because there's a commitment from us to make connection. I understand the issue of 75% and population coverage, etc. But we also understand the deep intricacies of communities and their connectivity and what it means to all of us. That's what I'll say.
So we are going to take two more questions because we also have NWC here with us. If we still need to get we still need to get updates from Digital Justice Team, we can either take it by way of a report or we can invite them back if we see the need to. But we're going to take these two last questions, have them excused, and then we take NWC. All right?
The question is to Ms. Clark. I noticed the community reach to date. Hanover, there is no, we have not been into Hanover, that is hard hit.
First, thank you very much. We are scheduled to be in Hanover this week.
Okay. And I noticed that you visited my neighbor, Christian, and you didn't come to my side.
And which side is your side, may I ask?
Clarendon side.
We are coming, for sure.
Okay, because, one other thing that I observe, that the different groups are going into different communities.
Right.
And we are moving into just the main area, and these people get it every day, while the people in the hills not getting anything at all. I think one other thing that we need to do is that we have to have a coordination, that you will say that this area, there's no agency or nobody visit those communities to get even a package.
So we have been working with communities and working with persons on the ground who have first-hand knowledge. And while you might see the cities and the communities and the main
I'm not
centers,
saying about you, I'm not saying at all.
I'm saying to all, yes. And I know you're speaking to me specifically, but Digital Foundation definitely has been working with key stakeholders on the ground who are intimately involved in the community personnel and know who might be shut-ins. In fact, some of what we do recently when we were in Catherine Hall in Montego Bay, we went to the riverside, not just stayed in the schools and the churches that persons were lined up getting stuff, but we were going into the bank side, into the riverside, at the mouth of the river, where they were individuals, shut-ins, that ordinarily would not have access and would not have the capacity to come to us. So it is not consistent that we go to these community centers and do that alone. We make an effort. It is part of what we do to go into the shut-ins, into the communities, and liaise with the persons on the ground who will know who are the persons that would not have been able to make it to the town squares and to the town centers. So we're very happy to be part of this recovery exercise, and we are confident of the strength and the resilience of the Jamaican people, and we know that together we will rise even stronger.
Just a suggestion. Our churches touch a lot of people out there because different denominations and so forth.
Yes.
What relationship you have with the churches, and you have principals at some of the schools who know those children who, from before the hurricane,
Right.
they're having problem about eating and all of that, that you could be able to get some of the principals and all of that to assist you in all this
Absolutely. So as Stephen would have alluded in his communication earlier, we have a great relationship with our teachers, our schools. Education is a big part of what we do, and we work very closely with our schools, our churches, and our special needs. In fact, we are making special efforts to send packages and care packages that include essential items, food, hygiene kits, lanterns, solar lanterns, a number of things. We're working with the government on the environmental side and giving health care products using the schools, the principals, the teachers, the churches. We know that we cannot do it alone. And one of our big asset is that we believe in the power of partnerships. So we're working with all the agencies. We're not opposed to working with schools and churches. We've done that, and we'll continue to do that to ensure that we have further reach in all of the communities.
So what about the political representatives?
Pardon me?
What about the political representatives?
The political representatives as well.
Okay. I don't hear that part of it.
Oh, we do. We absolutely do work with our political representatives.
I am very. Last night, a pastor sent me some things at about 11 o'clock. I don't know why she believed that I was not sleeping. To give me a list.
Because the pastors don't sleep themselves. They're like us.
Okay, but a member from my constituency said that nothing can happen to politicians. The hurricane, the hurricane didn't come for politicians, so it didn't hurt. But I'm very concerned, especially the children who are out there, and you will see them, and you can feel the hunger, because sometimes some of the parents who will get the package, some of them will sell it to and the children don't get anything to eat. So I think it's something that we have to look at, or best we can able to, especially the principals. They would know those children who every day they will come to school, and the only time they attend school is because they know that they will get a hot meal.
And you're exactly correct. And that's why today we're packing 12,000 care packages, and the teachers and in the schools are a vehicle that we'll be using. They have intimate knowledge of the students with the greatest need.
Okay.
And like you have recommended, that's something we are doing as we speak.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to repeat. We've been on track. The presentation has given us a lot of insight. It has helped us tremendously to communicate, and we say thank you on my part. The 75% that you're going to be at is very, very good. It's a huge number to see those three Western parishes at 75%. And I specifically, because Montego Bay can skew the numbers. St. James can skew the numbers. That's why I keep going back to it to say Westmoreland, Hanover, St. Elizabeth, your commitment is 75%. That is where we start, and that's where we end. The use of old, new technology, whatever you do to get there, is we are laymen. So we may use and say things that may not sound to professional engineers and trained individuals as it should. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So let me take time to say thank you to the digital group for being here, giving us a vast amount of information that we did not have before. Now that we have it, also John Public is aware of it somewhat, and the message will be passed. What we're taking from this is to say to those persons who are by ulterior motive doing what they're not supposed to do, We are beseeching, we are begging, we are imploring of you, stop, so that the country, in particular the communities that have been hit hardest, they will be able to come back on stream where communication is concerned. And also that notwithstanding all of that, if it doesn't happen, we will be seeing communication from Digicel services up and running within 2 weeks. Thank you very much for coming. We will be calling on you, maybe at short notice, maybe notice enough to give you time, but be prepared, because you serve not yourself, but the country of Jamaica and your clientele. Thank you. You are excused. This time we will ask Water Commission to take the front seat. Where the youngster? Yeah. You can bring your name tag with you just the same, please. Yeah, somebody will take those. Can you imagine that? Thank you very much, NWC, having sat through that lengthy presentation by Digicel. I think it was worth it, because you two are clients. At this time, we will ask Dr. Philippa Campbell Francis just to introduce the others. Oh, Ms. Talia, you're going to take the lead.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of committee. Yes, right. Name is Talia Gibson. I'm the Senior Director, Water Policy and Monitoring Branch at the Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change. Today we are here to discuss the NWC's progress in the restoration efforts due to Hurricane Melissa. We have today Dr. Campbell Francis, Vice President Operations, Mr. Charles Buchanan, and Mr. Delano Williams, both in communications, public relations. Now I will ask Dr. Campbell Francis to make the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. This afternoon's presentation, I want to talk a little about the extent of the damage, how it is that we do our assessments, what are our communication channels, the progress that we're making. We'll talk a little about our customers and the costs to the NWC. So the National Water Commission, just to set the context, we have over 1,000 facilities that are electricity dependent. We have over 551,000 customers, but we do understand that there are persons who are otherwise connected, and so we provide service to over 75% of the population in terms of coverage of the island. The overall impact of Melissa, it has been very challenging for us. And it has been challenging based on how our network is placed. So I know MP Robertson would have spoken earlier about our rural communities. And so as we talk about what the impact has been, we want to say that initially, after the passing of Melissa, all our customers were out. But we have a good team of workers, and so our assessments would have started the following morning. And what we worked to do was immediately to bring back our most important, I don't want to use most important, but those facilities such as our hospitals and schools and our town centers and so on. So when we started getting back online, we would have started with the major towns. So when you consider towns like parishes such as Casey, St. Catherine, Clarendon, St. Mary, Portland, St. Anne, those parishes on the eastern side of the island, we were able to bring back quite effectively, I'd say, in a few days. So as MP spoke about the percentages, so we are currently, in terms of restoration, as at this morning, at 75%. But we are cognizant of the fact, in fact, we had a lengthy discussion, and those are the discussions that we've been having, that while we have a 75% restoration, we have to now consider the 25%, which are our people in the deep rural areas. So when we talk about 1,000 systems and what our assessments look like, there are two phases of assessments that we do. The first phase of assessment is morning after. The field teams, the operations teams, the people on the ground, they go out and do an assessment of a physical look and see of what the facilities look like. We have been able to do, for that first phase assessment, of our 760 primary facilities, we have been able to cover all of them. So there are 760 that include our tanks and so on, but in terms of primary facilities, it's 600. 760, and then we have the number 1,000. So it's three sets of numbers because we then have lift stations and we also have tanks and so on. So we may get a system back online, but then we have to ensure that the relift is back online, that the tanks are operating, whether we're then going to gravity 2 and the areas we're going to. So that's why the numbers differ. So 600 primary facilities, 760, and then 1,000 include the other sets, our tanks, as well as our relift stations. So for the initial assessment of all the facilities, there are now only 6 facilities that we have not been able to reach, and those are in some rural areas where the roads are impassable. One that
Some,
Remember, you have to wait until the mic is turned on.
it will take a long time for
No,
me
it
to
won't.
get accustomed.
No, it won't. Just be patient. Your mic is on now.
I will. I'll try my best, Chairman. If you can tell us the 6, because already the questions are coming in from some of my colleagues who are not here, and they want these questions asked, just to know, for example, the 6. So that would be 6 of the 1,000. That would be 6 of the 760 and 6 of the 600.
No, it's actually 6 overall. I know that content in St. Elizabeth is one of them because that facility is in the middle of, that facility is off of Santa Cruz, but the area is completely flooded. So we have seen the facility, but the area is flooded and therefore we have not been able to go in to do the electromechanical assessments. And we also have the other 5 are in Hanover, Westmoreland. I will tell you shortly what those 5 are.
Sorry, madam. Is it, sorry, I heard you say Hanover, Westmoreland. Is it Hanover and Westmoreland?
Hanover and Westmoreland.
Okay.
So the other 5 are in that region. I'll communicate those in a minute. The So we've done the first phase assessments. The second phase assessment is when our technical teams then go back and then they're able to say what we can start, what we cannot start because of issues that we're having. So there are 200 facilities. And remember now, these 200 would be in the worst hit areas. And these are the facilities that would be in the hinterlands, in the country areas, because most of the facilities, if you go parish by parish, most facilities that serves the town centers. So last night, for example, we got Great River back up. Great River serves Montego Bay, Catherine Hall, and we have some areas there on the flat. We had a challenge at Martha Brae as well. And so Martha Brae, both these facilities are now on generator, by the way. So you do not still get 100% capacity. So like Martha Brae, like Montego Bay, Great River would be running at 50% of capacity. When you look at that space, the elevated areas, and that is why we spoke about the lift station. So while we're able to fill the tanks at Terminal and Appleton Hall, we're then going to have to lift. The situation as it relates to the JPS power is really bad because for most of those 200 facilities not yet checked, that is where the 35%, the 25% of the customers would be. They not yet back online, sorry, not checked. In addition to that, we also have systems, and this is also a discussion that we're having, that even though we have done the assessment for the plants, once we start pumping, it is when we are going to know the damage to some of the pipelines that are not major transmission means. And so there are some communities in or rural areas, West Rural, East Rural areas in St. Thomas, where it's just no days since you're putting back water on the line that you are able to see that you are going to also have to deal with your pipeline infrastructure. The major ones you see right away. So your Montego Bay line, your Martha Brae. Other challenges that we've had, and this is significant every time we have a hurricane, but it is now worsened. It is the blockage of your intakes, the heavy siltation in terms of what comes down into your intakes. You have a major intake such as Bogue. We were actually able to get Bogue up by day 3. That serves St. Anne straight into St. Mary, Port Maria. What happens with a system like that is that when you have the blockages at the intake, and it was very bad, it takes a number of days and all teams to just converge on that. So we have the blockages of the intakes, and then we have the smaller facilities now. And these are the rural facilities where most of the challenges are, where we have areas like East Rural in KSA. And for those systems, especially those on the elevated sections, we have not been able to complete cleaning. Those part of what we have to do to get our rural systems back online, which is really where the 25% is. There are some parishes with pipelines in waterways based on how those systems were set up initially. Those pipelines would have been dislocated and therefore would have to be replaced. And in some instances, we would have actually removed them before the hurricane. But our restoration process started from day one. It has been very tedious, but the team has been working very hard. I want to make the point, and I'm not going to talk about the 75% in terms of where we are. I'm going to look at the percentage in terms of those that we need to, those communities. So for Hanover Westmoreland, the Logwood facility, we now have a rented generator in that space because the generator that was there before got damaged. Now, while you're able to serve some of your customers, you find that we are getting some assistance from some external partners. GSD Dawn, I think it's Global Support and Development, and that connection was made through ODPEM. So what they've pretty much done is for the parishes of Hanover and Westmoreland, they would have docked their ship at Point Lucy, and they would have provided for us 6 4,000-gallon tanks that we have deployed to communities, 2 in Hanover and 4 in Westmoreland. They would have supplied us as well with about 800 10-liter bottles for the persons in the communities, and that is now a filling station as well. So one of the things that we've been doing is trying to put filling stations in all the regions and parishes that are severely impacted so that the West can support the East. So, for example, between St. James, Trelawney, Hanover, Westmoreland, we have sent 6 water trucks into that space. And we have sent an additional water truck into Manchester, St. Elizabeth. So it means that there is some assistance provided. That should be 4 water trucks actually, and 2 other trucks to be able to move the tanks and water and so on with some makeshift effort. So we are moving people as well into those areas to help with the assessment along with our partners and just really trying to see how quickly we can get those communities back on board. So we have filling stations. We have 6 filling stations between Hanover, Westmoreland, St. James, Trelawney. We have in Manchester, St. Elizabeth, we have 1 at Luano. And when I say filling station, it's filling station for water trucks, but we have also set up filling stations like a 2-point location, same place on property, but we have set up a space for our customers who will have a truck or a van or who just want to do bottles or a small tank and so on. So we have set up wayside filling stations in addition to what we have done in Hanover, Westmoreland with those bladder tanks that we got on from GSD, who is providing some help. The restoration for Trelawney is at 59.8% because Martha Bray is now back up. Our priority has been the hospitals, and it meant that, and all of these systems we're talking about. So for Martha Bray, it's on generator. For Luano, that's Manchester, St. Elizabeth, it's on generator. So most of these systems, the NWC has to deploy generators from the east, or what we have been doing as well is to rent generators. Westmoreland, we are actually at 28% because Westmoreland is one of the worst hit. I'm going to see if I can read the percentages from this list of the worst hit areas. So St. Mary is still at 55.4%, but that's primarily due to lack of electricity. St. Elizabeth, 28.1%. Westmoreland is at 43%, and the Hanover is at 63.3%. So our worst parishes now are St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland in terms of trying to get recovery. What we're doing with the additional trucks, because there are some places that is going to be a while until we get those generators in, that we will be able to serve them. So what we have been doing is really trying as much as possible to truck to the communities using the water trucks, but also having some of those people fill up from the filling stations that we have set up. The greatest problem for us is the lack of generators. Because if we had enough generators, it means that we could get most of these systems back in, because most of them did not have electromechanical damages. There is a provision that we have made in our initial estimates for pipeline replacements, because when you look at areas like Black River and so on, once you drive through the area, you're able to see where the pipelines are dislocated. Those assessments would not have been completed because we can't. Some, yes, but we can't see everything and we won't know right now. But we know we are going to have to spend significant sums that we're going to have to put into replacement of pipelines and replacing of individual customer connections, which is another matter. Outside of that, one of the issues we had was the fueling of our tanks. It has improved somewhat, but when you have your water trucks having to join the line to get gas to deliver water to an area, then a trip that is supposed to take 30 minutes actually takes 2 hours. So that has significantly slowed the movement of our trucks and so on. But we have put some recommendations on the table for those who would want to assist us, that if there were solutions that would provide temporary filling stations for gas and so on, it would be useful. In terms of generators, we have done a critical list of generators that we need. That list has approximately 100 generators on there, but we currently, and that is in addition to the 50 that we already have deployed out there. So right now it is really for us to try to get generators in and then moving as necessary as systems come back on to be able to cover those rural communities. But it is extremely challenging, and we continue to work as best as we can. We have been communicating with ODPEM, the Ministry of Health, all the agencies, the utilities, UNICEF, just some other agencies who we meet with from time to time, and they advise on the kind of help that they are able to provide. The plans for the customers, as it is now, that is under consideration, but we had in fact started an amnesty for our commercial customers who were disconnected, for them to get on board, where we would give them a 50% write-off and time to pay the difference. We are extending that amnesty another month in the hope that it will help some of our people in our business communities to get back on. So in terms of recovery and resilience, we want to expand the generator program and the mobile backup fleet, look at alternative renewable energy solutions for critical facilities, and this is in the going forward. Looking at our business continuity and communication plans across the regions, because I want to say it has not been perfect, because a lot of what we saw, we knew on the morning after the hurricane, that there were some specific things, there were things that were new to us. So for example, in a community like, say, Hanover, Westmoreland, when I visited with the staff, when they are displaced, you don't expect 90% of your staff to be displaced. So then you now have to make arrangements to consider when they're going to be able to even contribute to the workspace. And then you're still pushing to get the offices open so that customers can see that you can still come and have some activity going, and so on. And we acknowledge the tremendous collaboration and effort of our staff, the Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change, JPS, the NWA, and all other partners in the restoration of services. And we are committed to working as hard as we can to get our rural communities back on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Doc, how are you? Okay. I never knew you were so centered. I thought you were still in the East serving us. We will miss you. You spoke about your dislocation of your staff members. Let's start there so that we can understand quickly what has taken place and how difficult it is for you, St. Elizabeth, and I'll keep going back, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, and in this case, yes, the big rivers and supply systems, St. James and Trelawney. What percentage of your staff members would you say, were totally unable to provide any sort of commercial service to the National Water Commission from these 5, 6 parishes? Because you are structured mainly on a parish basis.
Apologies. In terms of our staff members affected, 90% of our staff members were affected. Were from minor to major damages. But in terms of major damages, we'd say the percentage is about 30%. As in roof missing, some persons would have said they have no house at all. Just persons who have significant damage and have to be staying with neighbors. I spoke, for example, with 2 staff members. One had lost her home completely. She had lost her roof. And when she called in the builder to replace the roof, the builder said, no, a roof cannot go on this structure. And that is in St. Elizabeth. So I've met persons like that. And then I met another young lady, this is in Westmoreland, who lost her house completely and was staying with neighbors. And she was now coming to the office to spend the days at the office because we had not yet started operations because the roof of the office itself was also damaged. So it is bad. And we have gathered the list of affected staff members. We have about 100 staff members with serious impact. Yes, from St. Elizabeth, Hanover, Westmoreland, and a few in Montego Bay.
Chairman, you heard about the 1,000 facilities. We understand the amount of generators you still require and need to procure. This committee will be looking at procurement in the very, very near future in a holistic manner, not specific to National Water Commission or any agency. What percentage of the island do you cover in terms of water supply, portable water supply?
75%.
And the other 25 is parish council and
Rural water.
rural water and parish council.
Yes, and there are some private suppliers as well.
So you're at 75%.
Coverage, yes.
I look at the numbers of your total customers. Maybe it's 400,000, maybe it's 150 still out. And then it breaks down in parish by parish. And thank you for this information. It is very useful. And I'm sure all parliamentarians will have a good look at it. And we will make it available to them. What is your timeline for these 5, 6 parishes that were hit by a Category 5 or affected in a major manner? Because, for example, St. Thomas, West St. Thomas, we know that we have issues. Nothing in comparison. We have the Easington water system now without ground protection at risk, and that supplies Kingston and Bull Bay all the way through there. That's going to be a major problem if we lose it. How many of your existing 1,000 installations are still at risk? Power supply is one, because if your power supply is out and it creates damage to your electrical systems, that could take months to bring back. Some of us do understand these issues. What do you believe is your timeline for bringing back your individuals, customers, not in service at this time, not with water supply, in the 5 major parishes? How do you believe you will scale up that delivery? Because it is not sounding very positive because of the difficulties. You are an underground system, you are in rivers, your issues are different from for example, the digital providers.
As I said, right now, the primary issue is getting our plants running, or JPS facilities. What we're doing, we're trying to bring in generators. So we have been renting generators, a very expensive cost to do per facility. But we know the importance of that. We have rented over the last week an additional 11 generators. So it is our intention until we're able to procure, and we're looking at a timeline of 2-3 weeks for that. In the interim, we are trying to do as best as possible to get the rental generators into those spaces. And I must add that JPS is working with the NWC as one of their primary customers. So if you notice, their notifications will tell you that they are working on these JPS facilities, these NWC facilities, and they provide that to us every day. So even up to yesterday, we had per tree backup. There's some facilities that we thought would have taken a little longer, so they are doing their best. But for right now, primarily, I think those smaller facilities, we're looking at 3 weeks between the rental and the procurement of the generators that the NWC is procuring. And also those that persons have committed to gift.
So let me ask now, for the main centers, urban centers of Westmoreland, for example, when do you believe those would be up?
Westmoreland Center is up. So Sav already has water. Their water is supplied by Roaring River, and Roaring River is back online. We also have Bluefields back up, and Carawina. I think Carawina 1 and 2.
Bloomfield supplies what region?
Part of Westmoreland.
Along the coast,
Along the coast.
where you have your population. So the numbers of individuals will be up from those two. You mentioned a third?
Carawina. A little more inland. Oh.
I heard clearly. Maybe for the record, we would want you to repeat it. It's very important.
No, remember that we are recording, and therefore, if he doesn't speak in the mic, then we don't get it.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. So the Carawina system is a little more inland. Primarily the ones that are running now in Westmoreland are what we call gravity feed systems. So they don't require electricity to distribute. So Roaring River, running into Savlamar, Bluefields situated between White House and the outskirts of Sav, between Ferris and White House, and Carawina, a little more inland, providing substantial support to the customers there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Campbell Francis, boy, I have a lot of questions for the Water Commission, but for my constituency, but today is not about my constituency. So I will not go down that road today. But I do know that on a normal...
Member.
Yes, sir.
I want you to understand also.
Yes, sir.
The Sessional Infrastructure and Development Committee of Parliament is not about a parochial situation, but a national situation.
Right, indeed.
So we normally don't get into our constituency per se.
As I said, Chairman, I will not go into my constituency, as tempted as I am. What I do know, Mr. Chairman, is that on a normal circumstances, without even a Category 5, the concerns with the National Water Commission has to do with communication, where people are saying they're not hearing, they don't know when a lock-off going to be, or there's a timetable as to 6 to 12, whatever. The communication has been poor with the Water Commission. That has been my experience. And you mentioned there's some filling stations in some of the communities hardest hit. With the difficulty with communication, how are persons aware of these filling stations, those persons in the rural parts, right? That's one question. How is the communication going out for persons to know that there's a water truck down by the square? You can come there between midday and 2 o'clock to fill up your buckets, etc., etc. That's one. Two, you mentioned that there are some pipelines that were badly damaged and needs to be replaced. The pipelines that needs to be replaced are all the parts in Jamaica. Are there in your warehouse somewhere, or does it have to go through procurement? In this case, possibly emergency procurement to get it in Jamaica. I want to know if right before it was Digicel, who also have some challenges, but they mentioned that everything that they need is in their warehouse here in Jamaica. That's the second question. The third thing that shocked me was when you mentioned Dr. Campbell Francis, that a trip that could take 30 minutes could take 2 hours, because when the truck goes to a gas station and there are long lines, it takes forever to get petrol. But to my sure knowledge, Dr. Campbell Francis, you have private entities that can come to your location and fill up your trucks. You know what I mean? You know of that service. That is something you should look into, which is sometimes even cheaper than going to the gas station. It's something that I think the Water Commission should look into. The Water Commission should not be at a gas station joining a line with 100 cars to try and deliver water to a community that is in desperate need. When you have private entities that can come to your location and fill up your trucks. I'm surprised that the Water Commission does not have a petrol station at its location and have to go to the gas station just like me and Member Robinson and Member Azan here. So those are my 3 questions. One, how are people aware of the filling stations in the town centers or wherever the filling stations are? 2, all the material needed to replace these pipelines. Is the material here in Jamaica now, or we have to wait for it to be imported? And looking at private entities to come and fill up trucks, to avoid your trucks being at the gas station for several hours.
Okay, so I am going to take question 2 and 3, and Mr. Buchanan will take the question regarding to communication. So as it relates to pipelines for immediate repairs, yes, we have those pipelines in island and in hand. So for example, the Great River Pipeline, we did that from pipelines that we had. So we do have a stock of material for these large pipelines that we have to replace. However, we still have to do some procurement now to deal with the longer term issues that I spoke about, that where you may have some distress on your pipelines, you may find that later on, and when you're going through to replace some of those connections, you may have to change. So those will be procured. But for the emergency works, those are on hand. In terms of the filling station, the NWC has a filling station in East, based at our Morosco Road location, but we don't have a filling station in the West. What we do have in the West to do, our large facilities are filled by our contracted trucks. So when you're running generators for Martha Bray, Great River, and so on, Logwood, the large filling trucks will go there. But in terms of a water truck that's in the town of Montego Bay that is going to deliver to Catherine Hall, then those persons will have to fill at the filling station.
The question that I would want to ask, I heard you mention amnesty to commercial residents. What about commercial clients? What about the residential clients?
That is being considered. That was a discussion we have had with our president. We're still working through some of the hard stuff right now, but what is indicated is that we should work through what a residential amnesty would look like. So we have not reached there yet, but because we were already underway with the commercial amnesty, then that was easy to extend.
The concern, and as I said, we are live stream, and so persons are sending in their questions. They have been complaining about water bills, and they are saying that it is now 2 weeks going into 3 weeks,
and they're seeing some huge water bills coming to them, and they're saying that they have been out of water for quite some time, even before the hurricane. So they are asking the question, how have you, or how come you have arrived at such a bill? And they're not seeing anything going down, they're actually seeing it going up.
For those accounts that are going up, we will have to look at them individually. But the NWC is now in discussion with the OUR to work through how the bills will be handled and the process going forward. At this time, we're not at a stage where I can say exactly what those agreements are, but those are things that we are looking at right now. So the intention is to stop billing the customers in the worst affected area, but we will have to do that on a community by community basis. And as it relates to the estimates, persons would have been billed up to the 28th of November. Once we get into September, some people are still going to see those bills, but provisions are in place to upscale staffing so that we are able to look at those accounts individually where persons have those
So how
issues.
soon are you to visit your office with their complaint? And is it that preparations are put in place to take on an enormous amount of clients that will come to your office? Because I can tell you, especially in my constituencies, or St. James on a whole, we have been having water problem, and Mr. Delano knows very well of what I am speaking of, because I would have been in communication on more than one occasion. And so they're asking, or I am asking for them, are you prepared to take that amount of traffic? And how soon can they now start to come in? Because you're saying it is on an individual basis or a community basis. So I want to know here, I want you to say it, that they will hear that, yes, you are concerned about the situation, or you're aware of the situation, and so you're asking them to reach out to your office for them to be, for that situation to be addressed. And again, I have had complaint about customer service. I am imploring of you, in a situation as this, with such a devastating disaster, persons from emotional standpoint, from a physical standpoint, are already stressed. And so I hope your PR, your communication department will be in a position to say to members, we have to go, or we have to bend back as far as possible so that we don't ignite a situation that can be diffused with just maybe a one answer.
Okay, so for the East, all of our offices are open. You mentioned particularly St. James.
Sorry, I am speaking of the hardest hitting areas.
Yes,
all the parishes in the Western Belt.
I understand. So our offices in the Western Belt were all damaged except for our Mandeville office. So our Bevan Avenue office, the roof, sections of the roof went. They will not be opened until Monday, and even so with limited capacity.
So before you go further, Doc, my suggestion, could it be that you may want to rent a space separate and apart from the Bevan Avenue office to deal with the complaint, for persons, maybe a couple of your staff members, to deal with the situation that takes it away from the regular run of the mill situation, but really to address the concerns of the many customers that are reaching out? Because I also hear you mention of water being restored, but water being restored in St. James is really to the essentials and to the lower section, who may sit in between the Great River plant and the essential, which is like the hospital or the airport or the police station. So those residents within that circle will get water. But sorry, remember again, St. James is predominantly hill. 77% of St. James is hill. And so we depend heavily on the Appleton Hall system that provides water for at least half of that section of Montego Bay. The Catherine Mount wells just the same. And these supplies depend heavily on electricity. And so for the community of Flower Hill, Salt Spring, Rose Heights, Cornwall Court, those areas are without water. And it is hard to explain to them. I mean, persons will understand, some won't. But I want to get from you, how soon will these lift station, pumping station, will be energized through generators? Because I know that they are working on the lines. No, but it's going to take some time. In the meantime, will you be placing generators at the Appleton Hall and the Catherine Mount pumping station so that we can see water going into the hills?
Okay, so as it relates to the offices and the people coming into the office, I want to, if I'm allowed to complete that, to say that 5 of the 6 offices are damaged. But we're working to put on temporary roofing so that people will be in the space. In terms of persons coming in just to complain that they're not getting water, they will have that communication shortly in terms of what the NWC's response is to the persons who are not being served. They do not have to come to the offices for those complaints at all, because there's a plan to treat with those accounts separately. As it relates to generators, I cannot give you a date, but I can tell you that we are actively working. As I said, we will have to rent generators at this point because there is nothing available in hand that we have to move. So Catherine Mount and Appleton Hall, those are on the priority list.
If I may just add to that, Mr. Chair, so 2 of the areas you pointed to in terms of the elevated areas of St. James, Flower Hill, Salt Spring, those are definitely priority locations which are fed from the terminal system overlooking the airport and the Appleton Hall, which is to the west, to the north rather, of the Cornwall Regional Hospital. What we intend to do where possible, is once we've come off generating power for instance, our Great River system or Catherine Mount system, it gives us the flexibility to move one of those generators to the areas, to one of the systems that can allow us to elevate into, you've not only mentioned those, but also 41, Farm Heights, Rose Heights, right, onwards to Cornwall Courts, etc. So that's the target area. As we segue now to the communication, Doc would have made a point regarding just receiving customer contacts. We will put a link online, also shareable on our WhatsApp channel, that allow customers to submit those queries about their bills. So essentially, they're just putting in their customer code, premises code, which is the account number, their contact information, and click submit, which allows us to pull down that information and then respond accordingly. So it will save the travel time, save some of the queuing time at the offices, and therefore get customers properly registered in terms of the complaints that they may have. I may also just go back to MP's query about the notification. So we do still have to maintain some of the word of mouth transfer because communication is not up to the normal speed. We've placed the way station locations on our social media pages, but as we speak, we're mobilizing some signage for a few critical spots as well. Highly trafficked areas, so Bogue Stretch at Reading Spring near DNG, also Martha Bray at the bridge where we're seeing some persons converging to pull water supply. We are going to be putting some physically prominent signs there to direct them to the locations where they can go. We continue, though, to partner with the other emergency center agencies, the ODPEM, the JDF, the JCF, to also disseminate the information in the locations where we're either trucking or we've set up wayside stations.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So we are understanding that you all have over 1,000 island-wide facilities that require electricity, a percentage is out. We've listened. We also understand that of the customer demand, Jamaica's physical infrastructural requirement on a customer basis for water, we're at 75%. And we really thank you for your time on this presentation because it has helped some of us understand. For example, a constituency such as South St. James, hard hit, deep rural, the percentage would not be 75 to 25%. It may be 50-50 or it may be a complete reverse. Where we may have to, Mr. Chairman, sit with to understand this issue even better because we have gotten a feel for what you're doing, for your challenges, but we're not really coming to terms with, or I am not, as a committee member, understanding how to get past this, what the numbers mean when you have 25% or 20,000 out by your records. And you may tell me it's bill paying or customers with open accounts. I believe the challenge, Jamaica's challenge, physical infrastructure, water challenge is far greater than we are coming to terms with this morning. I mean, I really understand it's been very helpful, but I believe, Mr. Chairman, we're not accomplishing what this committee needs to accomplish on this issue. Because we learned things like UG, underground water, underground facilities. We're learning, but we're not coming to terms with what's in front of us as committee members. So we may have to ask the Ministry of Water or those in that area to give us a presentation. Because when I understand what rural water would mean, and parish council water systems and unbilled customers, I believe we have a far greater challenge, especially now with the passing of a Category 5 through the parishes of the West.
You see, the problem is that we as legislator, we are also resident in a community. And we grappled at this point, especially me, grappled with the situation that, yes, I am here as a legislator, listening to you, trying to understand the numbers, the figures that you're putting to us. But when I'm in my community, I have no water. And I live in Farm Heights, on top of the hill. Everybody around me has no water. And I'm trying to get an understanding of how do you come up with that number to say that we are here. And so I wouldn't say we're failing. We just need to understand, or you need to break it down to us. Just take us as a layman. Just take us as a regular customer out there. You understand? Because even the next point, Madam Doctor, the filling station. I know in Montego Bay, St. James, we have a filling station by Redden. But when the trucks goes to that filling station, it's just one spout. And I'm saying, in a situation like this, NWC need to have done some adjustment so that at least 3 or 4 trucks could be being filled at the same time, cutting down the time that they wait. Because we now have to also take into consideration the traffic situation that is at a standstill throughout the entire day in St. James. So for the truck to go to Redden and wait an hour and a half to be filled, and then have to take another hour and a half to go through that traffic to get to Mount Salem Farmites, to deposit that one truckload of water, it takes another hour and a half to get back to the filling station. So you end up spending 6 hours to carry one load of water. Understand? And this is the reality on the ground. So sending 5 trucks to St. James sounds good on paper. But 5 trucks in St. James trying to get water to residents is not even a drop in the bucket. You don't see it any at all. And so the question is, the $1 million question is, we know that service electricity has been restored to Great River, but water coming to Appleton Hall to be lifted to the higher elevation, how soon? It is of dire need for electricity to be restored or to be provided at these 2 pumping stations, Catherine Mount and Appleton Hall, so that the greater, the Rosite, the Farmite, the Rosemount Gardens, the Mount Salem, the Salt Spring, the Glendevon, the Norwood, all these communities that are on the hill to get liquor water, because again, no amount of truck water is going to suffice. And so the easiest way is really to put back water in the lines. And we're pleading with you. I'm begging. I have to go back to them. And I tell you, every minute you say I go on the phone, is somebody sending me sometimes the same message or something a little bit different, but it boils down to, when are we going to see water in our pipes?
Chairman, Dr. Clark, Dr. Francis. My apology. Excellent presentation. I understand the members about the percentage. I was just saying to Member Robinson that it looked like we're using a drone to get these numbers. Anyway, 2 questions that I want to ask you. I was in the West on Saturday, and especially those where they have the some of the shelters, and you do have running water and all of that. I see where the disease is going to break out. What is the plan of the National Water Commission to especially put water at the shelters, whether a tank or to fill it there or whatsoever? The schools also that, children are there for the 6C and they don't have water and all of that, the plans. The question that really big question I want to ask you though, is that the Ministry of Water provide allocation to members of Parliament to truck water. And a number of the private trucks just don't want to operate. Well, they say they can't accept the rate of the Water Commission because it's so low, and the different areas they have to travel from a far distant away to truck water, even to help me to get some water at the schools, what they're doing, the high schools and the primary schools that are doing 4 to 6. What is the plan to do some adjustment to the rates and the filling station? Because take, for example, Mr. Williams will understand what I'm saying here. The trucks have to travel from up into Spalding to go to Porous. Now we're having a challenge that at Content, where you have the flooding there now. So everybody have to go up to Williams, Winston Jones Highway. So you see the cost now. And as the chairman was saying, distant away. So for the entire day, that truck may be only able to draw 1 truckload of water. But you have 24 schools. How you're able to deal with that part of it, I don't know. So that is one of the things that I'm very concerned about. The matter that Member Smith raised about the PR thing, I can't complain about it. I used to complain to my friend, and at least I am getting too much email now. And because they put the entire island, sending them to me. I just want only to know what is happening in Clarendon and Manchester. So we have to do a little adjustment. But it would be good, Chairman, if the National Water Commission would share those information with all the MPs and all the councillors, that they can able to share it with their constituency, because that is what I am able to do now. When you send me the information, what you are having at the different plants, I can able to send it to different WhatsApp group, that this is the problem that they're having there. This is when they expect to get water and so forth. So I think it's something that is in this time that we have to be able to share those information to make sure that that other persons can able to get those information. But Dr. Francis, the shelters, please, I see exactly what is going to happen. And we have to try to find a way to work out something between the Ministry of Health and so forth, because it is going to create a serious, serious problem.
Yes, member, we have been looking at adjusting the rates. So yes, the rates will be adjusted for the persons in the critical areas, for the trucking rates, both for what we sell and what our private truckers will deliver on our behalf, because we understand that challenge. The new rates are not yet published, but for this period, the rates will be reconsidered. As it relates to the shelters,
because we're in this critical period right now, how early those announcements will be made that at least the $2 million that was allocated to Northwest Clarendon, the 3 trucks that they asked us to identify, the 3 truck turn it down because of the rate.
the new rates will be settled by this weekend.
Follow up. Sorry, I don't know if I missed this part. Minister Robinson was distracting me. Member, the new rates will be published this week, and you're confident, Dr. Campbell Francis, that these new rates will be satisfactory to market to the truckers.
I will not be able to say that. I cannot
All right.
say. Yes.
Okay. Would you be able to say the level of increase? 5%,
No, not yet.
Not yet. So,
But we will announce the increase by the weekend.
what was it? Okay. Member Azan has asked me to ask you about payment, because he's saying that the contractors are saying that sometimes, we know the processes. It just wondering if they've been more efficient with the payment of these contractors.
Part of that situation, member, is something that we'll be looking at in the nearest future where procurement is concerned, because I take it that it has a lot to do with procurement and payments. So we'll be looking at that further from now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So water and the physical infrastructure of it as we see it, I made the point, we realize that in deep rural areas of Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, St. Elizabeth at this time, your customers or who you serve is far less than 25%. Do you have any numbers, any thought process you could share with us as we try to grapple with what we have not come to terms with a full understanding this morning, what we have failed on? You have put us in the right direction. You have placed clearly in front of our eyes what we need to look at as committee members, and we will be going there. But do you have any thought process? Because I'm sure you have done your studies of areas such as Cedar Valley, Trinityville, which are very similar in many ways to St. James, South St. James, the hills of Hanover, St. Elizabeth, because it's very important for us to understand our strength and weaknesses as a country.
Those numbers, member, would be contained in the section that says customers not yet restored. So the actual numbers of customers are there for each parish. Yes. Total number of people in the population. Okay. We will attempt to provide that in the presentation that will come.
The
Because we
question
do
that,
not
sorry,
have-
madam, the question that you just asked, member, is not on record because you did not go through. So ask it. Hold on.
The question we're putting forward, you're familiar with it. The requirement, customer requirement, community by community, parish council division by parish council division. I go there because a lot of these systems that we are now going to be looking at when we go deep rural are parish council systems and rural water. So we are going to have to go somewhere else to get the numbers in terms of to understand what the requirement is, what the shortfall is, how many citizens we have now in these different areas and in these different parishes that are not being properly served with treated water. That is what we're trying to get at and to see what we can do in the near future. And I thank you for your time on this.
Yes, member. In terms of the service of water overall, as you're aware, under the National Water Sector Policy that is currently in effect since the last revised version was 2019, 85% of the population is supposed to be served by the National Water Commission and the other 15% via the parish council's private providers. And as you're aware, Rural Water Supply Limited works with both the NWC and the NWC and the private providers as well as parish councils to develop systems as we go along to provide water in rural and urban areas. But in terms of the policy, we are classifying areas to be served as not rural and urban, but we are looking at the areas as non-utility service areas and utility service areas. So NWC would be responsible for providing water to the utility service areas, and these are areas where it is the least cost method to provide piped water. While for the other 15%, which falls under the non-utility service areas, those are areas where it is really difficult to have piped water from the NWC. So that is where you would have a lot of cases with the parish councils having these small supply systems, and they would have barbecues and those sort of things where they would provide catchment tanks, so they would provide water to the various communities. So it's a combined effort in the water sector between the private, the government, through the NWC and the Rural Water Supply and the parish councils to provide water as best as possible. So the vision is to provide as best as possible up to at least 2030 to have at least the majority of, or at least 100% access, but given circumstances and things that happen, it may not meet the target, but as best as possible to meet those targets. And in fact, right now, this hurricane has kind of impacted some of the progress that is being made. But the efforts are there to ensure that we get back to where we were and get back on track to provide universal access, at least by 2030, to various programs being managed by the ministry and the agencies. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, when you speak about the National Water Policy 2019, that's what you had indicated. That's where we'll have to go and read. So, Mr. Chairman, through your chair, can we get this? And we can have a good look at it, this policy paper. At this time, what percentage of St. James would be with treated water? What percentage of Westmoreland? What percentage? Would you have an idea of what we're looking at this time? Because you explained quite well earlier that even though you have back online some of your major water supply systems, because they are not running on the JPS system, they're running some of them on generators. Their output is maybe at 59%. I recall that figure, I noted it. Do you have a thought process on that? What we face, what the challenges are there in terms of what percentage of different communities or parishes that are receiving treated water?
Delano, could you share the numbers of customers we had without water and do those calculations?
So overall, we have 30% of our database, our customer base, sits in these 6 parishes on the western side. That's just on the approximately 170,000 customers. Of that number, I would say our own assessment says less than 50%, somewhere between 45 and 48%, currently have access to the systems that are coming back online. In terms of physical residents, we average each customer point as a household of 4. So you're looking at just under 700,000 persons in this space. At 50% restoration, about 85 to 90,000 customers have access to water as at this morning based on the larger systems that we have now brought back online. We do note the concerns that there are still elevated areas that have not yet started to receive pumping. But along the plains where water is flowing directly from the pumps or via gravity, that's our estimation at this point.
So, Chairman, may I just add a little to Mr. Delano's answer as well, to indicate part of the challenge we have at the National Water Commission, especially in a restoration situation like this, is many of the systems will take some significant time to be fully charged. So a Great River water supply system that came back into operation, all of the customers on that system would not immediately begin to see the restoration. So a customer who is connected to that particular system may hear that system is back, and it's gonna take, in some instances, a day, 2, or even more for the system to become fully charged so that they will see it in their pipes. The problem is also compounded that, especially now, when the areas have been without water for an extended time, so everybody's tank is empty and everybody is filling. We also know that there are a number of breaks, either at the individual customer home or that are on the network. So we want to encourage persons to continue to bear with us as we work feverishly to restore their supply. But when the system comes back, it does take a while for all the customers to begin to benefit from that. But the good thing is that with the system now in place and operating, it is going to bring more and more persons with service, reduce the areas in need of trucking, and also reduce the areas from which persons need to come and collect water. So each day we hope to be making further progress and to be making more customers come on board. I also may need to add some things to an earlier question with regards to our communication, because we recognize that even in those instances where we are issuing communication, it may not at this time be reaching all the customers. So we're posting on all the social media. We have the NWC's WhatsApp line that is up. We have a mobile app that is providing information. We have our contact center, which is taking toll-free calls on a daily basis. But we do acknowledge that, especially in this circumstance where communication is not free-flowing, there may be persons who are still out there despite our communicating. I commit that we will always work at communicating more and better, but part of the challenge is also that the message is being sent, but there's no one in a position to hear the message. I hope I've added something to that.
Yes, Chairman. So Buchanan, the suggestion I made to send the information to the political representative, you will take that on, that you will share that information daily, because you go into an area and person said that they can't get water, what is the problem? The member of parliament or the councillor could easily well access to say that this is the information that we have.
Yes, we will be committed to working with all the critical stakeholders to help spread the word in as many channels as we possibly can. And our community relations teams will activate even more than before.
To Dr. Francis, she didn't answer about the shelters thing, but I want to ask before. I see you have 51% in Manchester Restore and 71.5 in Clarendon. But Moravia, 2 meeting, Peace River. Moravia, all right, Manchester 51 and Clarendon 71.5. I know that Moravia is served by Manchester. 2 meeting, Manchester 2 or Clarendon. Both of them. And the Peace River. There's any time period, especially for the Moravia and the 2 meeting who serve the hospital at Spalding. What is the plan for that?
Let me start with the shelters question first. So we have been having discussions, or we are in dialogue with the Ministry of Health. So as it relates to the shelters, the only shelter that we were asked to come in to provide some assistance was Petersfield in Westmoreland. So we have been trucking, and we have also assisted with doing some assessments to provide some additional storage for them, because their issue was a storage issue. So until then, the trucks will have to go to them daily, which is happening. As it relates to Moravia, it is on our critical listing. So what I asked is that our teams had a generators listing, critical generators that we needed, that did not include some facilities that were in the hardest hit area. So we have, since Melissa, updated our facilities listings, and the critical facilities for us are those in St. Elizabeth, in the parishes in the west. So we have shifted our critical listings to include the parishes worst hit, because we are working hard to improve the numbers for those parishes. If you may allow me to answer a question that was asked before, and that is the matter of the facilities not yet assessed. You're right, you got content, and I confirmed Retrieve. These are for Hanover, Westmoreland now, Retrieve, Jerusalem Mountain, Greenwich, and Dance Road, but they have committed to completing those within the next 2 days. So by the weekend, content, we don't know what the flooding situation will look like, but the other 4 will be done this weekend. Yes. Content St. Elizabeth, that's the one that's flooded.
Asking about that the truck, the filling station is in Porous, and they have to travel all the way up to Winston Jones now to head back to Christiana and Spalding because content is flooded.
So they would have done their assessments. But we're referring to those that we have not been able to look at all, which would be these 5. The content St. Elizabeth, then Dance Road, Greenwich, Jerusalem Mountain, and Retrieve. But we will have those 4 completed on or before the weekend.
Members, we are now 29 minutes to 2 p.m. I'm going to be taking the last question.
Doctor, repeatedly saying the weekend.
Sound like a song.
For the record, I want dates. I want details. I want dates. So the weekend, let's get dates.
It starts Friday.
Right. So the weekend, today's Wednesday the 12th. So the weekend, what is
Remember
it?
you asked for the date.
Right, I'm sorry, Chairman.
Right.
Dates.
Can we now have
Just for the record.
a date for the record, Doc?
Okay, so the Friday is the 14th. So by the 16th. Yes.
All right. Once again, let me say thank you to the team from NWC. You have been very insightful, even though we are still at a point not comfortable. We appreciate the information that you have brought to us this morning. I take it that John Public, especially in the western part of Jamaica, will find it favorable to appreciate what you have said, but at the same time, the concern is very high. And so we will continue to be in dialogue with you, whether we will ask you just to send us a report or we will call you to come back to us to present on the situation, hence from here until that time. It is a never-ending work. We continue to do the work. You on your side, us on our side, but we must at all times work together hand in hand to make the lives of Jamaica citizenry comfortable as best as possible. Once again, we say thank you, and we look forward to the workings. At this time, Dr. Campbell, Ms. Talia, and your team, gentlemen, you are excused. You don't have the mic, member? The meeting is not over. Whilst the members from the NWC team
is making their excuse. Are there any other business? None. A date to be set next week. The 19th, tentatively, but if there is no other meeting on Tuesday the 18th, then we'll have the meeting brought forward to that time. At that time, we hope that the other agencies, NWA, NROC, NS, WMA, National Solid Waste Team, those entities will be here. We are also looking forward to have the different parish MCs in the West to be here to give us an update, because they too are doing some amount of work. They have some amount of responsibility, just to see. All right? But remember now, member Azan, not all entities will be here all at once. So we will send to you those that are confirmed for next week, Tuesday/Wednesday.
Could the minutes be sent like the day before that you can able to look?
As soon as it is prepared, which will likely be at least a day before.
Okay.
If it is sooner, you'll get it.
Okay.
I just want to emphasize again, at some point, Mr. Chairman, we would like to meet with the procuring department of the Ministry of Finance, because we want to understand if they have any thought process that will help us in this immediate emergency that is time sensitive.
Noted. All right. If there's no other business, we ask that the meeting, somebody move for the motion, moved by Member Azan, seconded by Member Smith. This meeting now stands adjourned.
Bullying can affect anyone, but some individuals may be more vulnerable to becoming victims. Its long-term effects can be devastating, leaving emotional scars that impact mental and physical health.
So ladies,
In this feature, when